I told you guys that I would share some of my other favorite things. This is Carrie with CR2F, by the way. I'm going to let you know that the links in the blog post about this are the way to get to these items. And then I wanted to let you know, too, that they are affiliate links. So just letting you know. A lot of the more expensive things I have, you can build your collection over time. So one thing that I really like is all these Daniel Smith and Winsor & Newton watercolors. Daniel Smith has a primary set that's pretty awesome. It's and then a basic set, and then a Primatech set. There's some Gene Haynes ones that are really beautiful as well. I've kind of developed a bit of a collection because I bought both of the introductory sets when they were a good deal one day on Amazon. If you're not familiar with, there's a website called camelcamel.com, and you can input a link to whatever Amazon item you have your eyes on, and it will tell you the historical price of it, and then you can tell whether or not you're getting a good deal or maybe you should wait. I appreciate that feature because sometimes it's like, okay, the least it's ever gone down is $2 more. I'm not going to wait for $2 more, or you might find out that whatever you have was, $60 less 3 days ago. So anyway, it's a good resource. But yeah, so I got there's a Daniel Smith Basics. You can make any color out of these, right? Primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. You can use them to mix anything. I think that you might also, black is hard to get, so I mean, that might be a color that you want, but I also like having many paint options because it means that I have some consistency. So if I pull out this Winsor Orange, I know what that's going to look like. And I've made some pretty colors with them, blending, and so I have to pay attention to what I added together. Like I have a really pretty peach that I like to make. But yeah, so that's, I mean, it's kind of up to you. You can start with a very small package and then add a little bit more. A little bit goes a long way on these, and you can use them straight out of the tube. That's kind of what I do here and then I add to it. And so these are all little dollops of paint still, so I'll just get them wet again. And as long as you can see pigment, you can turn it in, you can add some water to it and turn it into usable paints. And I got this heart for Valentine's Day. Obviously it was full of candy. And so I made a little guide of what the colors are. And then these are a whole bunch of different watercolor options for me. I don't do a lot of mixing here because there's not a lot of space. I've done some in here, or I pull it onto other things, but I put enameled paint in the bottom. And so that's something to think about too when you're considering what you might use as a paint palette is, what do you have? A regular old, a plate works, right? Like a dinner plate is great. I also bought, these are tubes as well. It's Mission Gold acrylics. And they have some really bright colors. I'm disappointed it didn't have a gray in it. Of course, you can make gray, but I wanted like an intense gray. Apparently I need a hand motion for that. But yeah, so these have been really wonderful too. They're really bold, and honestly, for the number of colors I got in the set, I can't remember what it is right now, but I'll link to it. I felt like it was a pretty good deal. It came with the palette as well. I made my own little color swatch chart so that I'd know what I was dealing with. And so, I'm happy with my Reeves ones, and I'm happy with my Prang ones, which are more student level, introductory level ones. They work, and sometimes they're my preference, just because I feel like I can play with them a little bit more, maybe because they were not expensive. But I have to say, the Daniel Smith and the Winsor & Newton ones are great. And then there's a sweet part of this too, that so I have some of my mom's old paints. She passed away a year and a half ago-ish. And one of the things that came home with me, and including some of the paintings behind me, were her old watercolors. And plenty of them were dried out, but I mean, Liquitex doesn't even make watercolor paint anymore. This is old, friends, but you know what? It still has pigment in it, and it's a really pretty color. So anyway, yeah. Okay, let's see. I also wanted to tell you about, I've been mentioning and linking to the Prima and Jane Davenport sets. I do really dig these. This is kind of where I started with watercolor when I picked it up again. And a couple of people have commented on this, so I just wanted to say, I mean, I haven't done watercolor in earnest until a little over a year ago. Like, I hadn't used watercolor more than a handful of times when they always became a soupy mess since, I mean, I don't know, 8th grade. I learned how to really watercolor paint in like 8th grade, and then a couple of summers my mom would let us use her fancy paints. And her acrylics too, but I painted with acrylics. I thought that was my preference, and I still love acrylics, but a friend of mine showed me one of these sets, and I ended up buying it. It was a Decadent Pies set. Turns out that the blueberry in that one is really nice, but it's too it's too subdued of a palette for me. I'm a bright color person. But I slowly watched for these to go on sale and played around with the colors and checked out what I liked. And last year, it was right around Valentine's Day that I decided to try watercolor again. My little brother encouraged me to paint something specifically, and so I did on an airplane. And I haven't stopped painting since. I did a 100-day challenge. That's coming up. I think it's April 4th, so that could be a really good way if you wanted to just see what happens or test out your watercolor skills to do the 100-day challenge. It doesn't have to be fancy or complicated, but just get out a paintbrush every day for 100 days. Pretty crazy. Okay, another thing that I've been digging is my gouache, which I've explained is kind of like watercolor meets acrylic. It's opaque watercolor. It dries with a matte finish. I like it because it is opaque, and so it can be fun to paint with. I need to learn more about all the ways to use it, but a lot of times now I'll use it to put additions on my watercolor paintings. So I did this cool coffee cup the other day. It might look better this way, I'm not sure. But anyway, I made part of how the bubbles look like bubbles is because I put little white highlights on them with gouache. But this was a pretty economical set. I think at the time it was like $36 on Amazon, and I've been really happy with it. I'm also going to take some more courses that teach me more about gouache because I have it, and I have had my eye on the watercolor set of these because I've just been impressed with this as well. And I like having a variety of colors. I dig it. So one other thing is about paper. So I've been talking to you guys about the Canson paper because it's inexpensive and not complicated. So another option is those little Strathmore 5x7s. And then, George, do you want to pop on and say hi? Come around. Nope, not right there. Come around. We've been playing with face paint. He still has crazy eyebrows. All right, go back out, okay? Another...
subscribe down to her channel.
No, he just said subscribe to my channel. Hey, we have a little banister break because George was climbing it, literally. The other thing I was going to tell you about was paper. So I mentioned the Canson XL. I think I said some of this already. And then I've mentioned the Strathmore 5x7 sheets that you can buy. Something else that's really fun to work with are these watercolor blocks. So this is also Strathmore. What's different about this is that it's a block, right? So all the sides are gummed. So they're like stuck together, kind of like on a normal pad of paper. And there's a little place right here where when you're done painting and it's dry, you can slide a knife under to, or something to slowly and gently loosen the edges and pull that piece of paper off. This way you don't have to tape it, and it's a lot easier, I think, for portability. They are more expensive though. Those Canson ones are like $6 a pad. And I don't remember how much this was. I got it with a coupon for 40% off, but I think even with the coupon, they're like $1 a sheet of paper. I was practicing some loose florals the other day. So the last thing I want to talk about is brushes. I know I've mentioned the Mutter ones, these purple ones. They're really fun to use. They're inexpensive, which I like, so they're great for kids. Come in a variety of sizes, so you can test it out. It's kind of funny people get really excited about whatever color, or I'm sorry, size of brush they prefer, but I feel like they vary a lot. I end up using these low Cornell ones a lot. This one's kind of wonky now. But they have really good tips and they're comfortable to hold, and I like that. I think that the bristles flow well. When you clean your brushes, you can shape them back into a point before you lay them flat to dry. Don't ever leave brushes hanging out in your water. That's not where they go. That'll damage the tip. I bought these at Joann Fabric. I have one more size somewhere. But I really like them as well. I like that they are a plastic material instead of wood. Sometimes I like the feel of the wood, but it just feels, it's a little lighter, and I'm less worried that I'm gonna ruin it. They're the Royal and Langnickel Menta brushes. And then these are pretty cool too. They're Princeton Heritage Series. I have one more of these somewhere too. I have a 4 somewhere. But I end up painting with these a lot. It's funny because red is my least favorite color. Sorry, people who love red. And so when I bought them, I was like, oh man, I don't want to use a red brush all the time. It's okay. They work really well, and I don't really even notice it. But they're really great. They're high quality. I especially like this little tiny zero liner for doing fine details. I sometimes, for the sake of efficiency, end up using the same brush a lot, but if I'm paying attention, I prefer changing my brush a lot to different sizes so that I can really do exactly what I want. I've been trying to experiment with using larger size brushes because most of mine, I only went up to roughly a 6. And it turns out that, especially, I've been trying to work on loose florals, and I do those better with a bigger brush. Yeah, so anyway, that's been fun. If I think of anything else, I'll tell you all, but otherwise, if you want to upgrade your supply game, that's how I would do it. Thank you.